This is Unit 3 and Chapter 13. So this is the 1980s. This is a decade that you still have Cold War tension. You still have the fear of nuclear conflict. But we're moving forward as far as global relations, and there's a lot of hope for changes in unemployment, poverty, and different social inequalities. You have a rise in consumer culture, and you have new technologies for this time period. We have personal computers, cable television, you have different video games, and you have what's going to be known as MTV, which is music videos. So as a whole, society is looking forward to the future with a lot of confidence. 1980, the election of Ronald Reagan is going to come about, but we have Ronald Reagan and we have Jimmy Carter. Carter's a Democrat, and of course he faced criticism for the Iran hostage crisis. You know from the last lecture that Carter will not win. This time you had 60 Americans with the Iranian hostage crisis that were held for 444 days. And like I said last lecture, an agreement for release is finally reached on the day that Carter leaves office and Ronald Reagan's first day. So Reagan will get the credit for the Iran hostage deal. Now, he campaigned on the idea, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And as you already know, Reagan beats Carter. So this election marks the beginning of a new political era, and it's going to be defined, this era, by conservative economic policies, a stronger national defense, and really, when we say conservative domestic policies and conservative economic policies, it is this focus to get these traditional values that we held back, that the Republican Party believes that we should hold. All right, so let's get to this slide. There's a lot of information on this slide. You have Ronald Reagan's presidency is going to be from 1981 to 1989. And we're going to have some different economic shifts going on. You still have the Cold War tensions. He's going to have a lot of diplomatic success. So when he takes office in 1981, he begins day one in the limelight with the release of the 52 American hostages in Iran and in this 44-day crisis. So he's starting off definitely on a positive. His economic program is going to be called Reaganomics, which he's going to emphasize tax cuts, reduce domestic spending, and increase defense funding, which means he wants to increase the military funding. He wants to strengthen the military. He wants to invest in private enterprise, and he wants to really revitalize the nation's economy. So as far as Cold War, you have SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative. That's in 1983, which is the year I graduated high school. It's going to be a proposed military defense system, and what it is, it's intended to protect the United States from a nuclear attack. So we still have all of this fear of somebody launching their nuclear bombs and other people launching back in retaliation. So this is going to symbolize a commitment to challenge the Soviet power, USSR. We're still in our Cold War race with them. And it's also that he's going to have a big push for technological innovation. Okay, so in 84, he's going to be reelected, and we're going to start his second term. And he's going to focus on diplomacy. In 1985, Reagan is going to meet with the Soviet leaders, the USSR, for some high-stakes summits. Summits are meetings. And they want to decrease the tension between these two superpowers, which again is the US and the USSR. Another thing international that's going to happen in Reagan's presidency is in 1986, and it's called the Iran-Contra affair. It's going to be a political scandal, and it's going to involve a secret arms cell. Arms, again, are weapons. And unauthorized funding to the Nicaraguan rebels. So, okay, in 87, Reagan is going to meet with the Soviet leader. So the leader of the USSR is Gorbachev right now. They're going to sign what's called the INF Treaty. And what that is it eliminates a certain class of nuclear missiles. So they decide, okay, nobody's going to have this type of missile in their collection. So this is actually considered a very significant arms control achievement during this era that Reagan does. Reagan's going to leave office in 89. He does get credit for some groundwork as far as the Cold War eventually ending. Okay, let's look at some of this stuff individually. So this is the releasing of the hostages, November 4th, 1979. You know that's when the U.S. Embassy was seized in Tehran, and the 52 hostages were taken. So Reagan in 81, he's sworn in as president, and that same time as he's being sworn in, they are putting the hostages on a plane from Tehran to be delivered straight to Washington. So, like I said before, we've talked about this a few times, Reagan does get the credit because it happened in his presidency. All right, let's look at his domestic agenda. One of the main things is Reaganomics, trickle-down economics, which doesn't really work that well. So let's see if I can explain this to you. So he is attempting to kind of reshape how economics is in the country. So when he enters office, they enter into a very high inflation, unemployment, and not a very good economic situation. I don't know, can you hear the dog snoring? My little co-workers here, all they do is snore and sleep. Okay, so America's economy is desperate for recovery and getting back on track. So Reaganomics is built on the supply side idea that emphasizes tax cuts, reduces regulation, and tight control of the money supply. So this approach is involved in lowering federal income tax. So if you lower the federal income tax and capital gains tax, it's going to slow the growth of the government spending and keep interest rates high to curb inflation. So Reagan pushes through a 25% tax cut. And he argues that by doing this, it's going to reduce the tax burden that would have incurred through investment and job creation. So in 83, inflation had fallen and unemployment began to improve, though the debates continued about the long-term effectiveness of what they call trickle-down economics. And this is a term that critics use to describe his policy. So along these economic changes, the United States experiences a major population shift. Millions of Americans move from older industrial Northeast and Midwest, this area is often called the Rust Belt, RUST belt, because of the factories closing and the rise in unemployment. So they're going to move south and west into the area that's called the Sun Belt. This migration actually began during World War II when defense industries expanded in states like California and Texas and Arizona. That's where the jobs were. So you're going to have the northern people moving down to try and get to these warmer climates and these new jobs, and also these areas that have lower taxes. So the Sun Belt's population begins to increase, and that's going to change the political landscape as far as what people are going to vote for, and it's going to affect national elections. But it also seems to reinforce the support for Reagan's conservative message. So these developments matter because they really, like I said, they reshape the economy, right? The industries are moving south, and it changes the political map. So Reagan's policies help redefine the role that government has in economics. And with this shift to the Sun Belt, there's going to be a power shift toward regions that are more receptive to conservative ideas. Okay, so if you think all the way back to the Civil War, there's been a divide in ideology between the North and the South. And the South will always, well, I don't know always, but the South will be considered and has been considered a very conservative area. Traditional values and usually align politically with Republican ideas, which Republican is considered conservative. Okay, so let's look at his peace through strength, the Reagan Doctrine. So this is a foreign policy on his principle is peace through strength, and it's a strategy built on the belief that the best way to prevent conflict is to maintain an overwhelming military and strategic power. Right? So we're going to avoid conflict because they're not going to mess with us. So this approach that he has, this major decision of his presidency to have peace through strength, is going to help restore American confidence. He's going to adopt a more stance of we're strong, you're not going to mess with us. He's going to begin to refer to the Soviet Union as an evil empire, and he's going to be more confrontational. You're going to see he's going to reject, the U.S. is going to start kind of rejecting some of these ideas that they should simply contain communism. The Reagan Doctrine is still going to support anti-communist movements in regions such as Afghanistan and Central America, but you're going to see a commitment change to peace through strength that's going to lead to a massive military buildup and a modernization of the U.S. military forces. They're going to develop new weapons as well as launch the SDI that we already talked about, the Strategic Defense Initiative. Reagan is going to still value diplomacy. He's still going to meet with Soviet leaders and try and work things out as far as in a diplomatic way, but he still wants to really present this very don't mess with us, this very strong military strength. And that is his plan to keep us out of war and to create peace. So we still have, like we said, the Cold War going on. It's going to come to an end here. So he's using his different diplomatic ways of reducing nuclear threat. Let's see, what else does he do here? That's pretty much all I can think of. I feel like I'm starting to repeat myself. But he really is wanting to put America on the world stage, but we've been on the world stage, but he wants to redefine how we appear on the world stage. Okay. This time period, we still have his Reagan Doctrine, which shapes different global conflicts that we are going to get involved in. We have Afghanistan, 1979 to 1989. This is when the Soviet Union invaded, and the United States is going to supply Afghans with weapons. This is another satellite type country. They're going to include in what they supply them with anti-aircraft, anti-helicopter systems, and they're going to back them and try and weaken the Soviet side. So this was a legal and openly supported operation, the Afghanistan one. Okay, Grenada in 1983. Grenada was a Marxist government. So there's communism and there's Marxist communism. So they're a communist government that took power after the assassination of the prime minister. So Reagan ordered a U.S. invasion to prevent further Soviet and Cuban influence, and he wanted to install a pro-U.S. government. Okay. Nicaragua is where we get kind of a controversial case. So 81 to 86, Reagan views this left-wing group as a threat, and he's afraid that they're going to align with Cuba and the Soviet Union, which is going to be an issue. So the U.S. funded an armed rebel group known as the Contras. Congress was concerned about human rights abuses and the risk of another Vietnam-style conflict. So Congress passes the Boland Amendments, 1982 to 84, which made it illegal for the U.S. government to continue supporting the Contras, okay, because they're afraid that we're going to get involved in another Vietnam. So despite this, members of Reagan's administration secretly sold weapons to Iran between 1985 and 1986. Even though Iran was under an arms embargo, which means that they can't have any arms, no weapons, and used the profits to continue funding the Contra, which, again, we just talked earlier that the Congress said no. So when this covert operation was exposed in 86, it becomes known as the Iran-Contra scandal. And this is going to be one of the biggest political crises of the decade. So this episode matters, the Iran-Contra scandal in 1986, because it reveals how far the administration was willing to go to fight communism. It raises questions about presidential accountability, right, because he was told no. And it exposed, again, a constitutional conflict between Congress and the executive branch over the control of foreign policy. It's going to have help with these Cold War fears are going to shape the U.S. again. You have Afghanistan to Central America, decisions being made. With political scandal. So what you have on the right is Oliver North. Okay, he plays a central position in this operation, the Iran-Contra scandal. So he's acting as one of the key National Security Council staff members who helped design and carry out this secret plan. All right, he was well respected. So he's a lieutenant colonel of the National Security Council. Well, North worked under a national security advisor, Poindexter was his name, and he becomes deeply involved in two covert, which is secret, activities that the Congress had either restricted or prohibited. So again, you have the executive branch going over what the Congress has said they cannot do. Kind of like what we see a lot today. So he helped coordinate the sale of these U.S. weapons to Iran, which at that time they were under, the arms embargo. So what they did was he helped to divert the profits from these sales and to the Contra and to the rebels, and he helped to change and facilitate all of that after the Congress, of course, had said no. All right, so he's going to deal with going to trial when all this explodes. His involvement is going to lead to criminal charges. He's going to be indicted in 1988. So you see him that's what he's doing right down there. He's on trial. and he's trying to defend himself. In 1989, he'll have multiple counts related to obstruction, destruction of documents, illegal operations, and all this other stuff. And of course, he's working under the presidential administration. These guys never are working alone. And he's going to get convicted. And later, due to different issues and being immune from testimony, what he's doing right here is he's in a televised testimony in 1987. So everybody's watching him. So this is going to be the big thing that blows up during Reagan's time in office. And North, of course, won't serve any time. Okay, this is looking at the SDI, the Nuclear Arms Control, and Star Wars, not the movie. Okay, so going back to involvement with nuclear missiles, this is the policy that Reagan negotiates with the Soviets in '83. It's going to be named Star Wars, and it's a proposed space-based missile defense system designed to intercept and destroy incoming nuclear weapons before they reach the United States. That's what Star Wars is. Let's see, what else do we have? We've already talked about the mutual assured destruction, and that's why they're wanting to come up with different diplomatic policies to control these mass weapons of destruction that we now have. This is religious conservatism and the new right. We talked about the new right when we started talking about this Reagan era. So what you have here is you have different leaders that start in the 70s but really come to light in the 80s. You have Jerry Falwell. He is a religious conservative. He is going to start coming on the scene in the 60s. He's against feminism, LGBTQ. You have the Supreme Court's decision for Roe v. Wade, which guaranteed abortion rights, which of course you know gets overturned later. You have Billy Graham. He is also a religious conservative evangelist. You have Reagan. He is going to put Sandra Day O'Connor on the Supreme Court. She is going to be the first woman to the Supreme Court, and she's going to be conservative. Conservatism goes with religion, evangelism, and always the right. Okay, which the right is Republican, the left is considered Democratic. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? We talked about Sandra Day O'Connor. We talked about Graham. Yeah, that's good. That's all you have on this one. Okay, Equal Rights Amendment, ERA. This was an amendment to the U.S. Constitution designed to guarantee the legal rights could not be denied and limited based on sex. So this is equal rights, and it's starting in 1972. So what we have here is that it falls short of being ratified. 35 states ratified it, 3 short of the required 38 before the deadline. So the amendment's goal was to eliminate sex-based discrimination in areas such as employment, property rights, and legal protections, which built on the women's rights movement earlier. So it's kind of, why would you deny that? Why would not everybody approve it? So the ERA becomes a major flashpoint during this rise of modern conservative activism during the 70s and 80s. Conservative leaders believed that a powerful grassroots movement arguing that the ERA would undermine traditional family roles. So basically, if everybody had equal rights, that goes against the biblical traditional family roles. And it weakened protections for homeowners and for social changes that conservatives were opposed to. So this is the anti-ERA activism, and it merges with the new right, which wants to go back to traditional values, and they do not want any social change. Let's see, what else do you have on here? This conservative shift of going back to traditional family values and rejecting the ERA, this is going to help Reagan get elected. Let's make America great again. So this was actual Reagan slogan. Hitler also used it, but of course not America, Germany. Let's make Germany great again. So this slogan has been around for quite a while. So this again is the new right. You have the conservative coalition, which just brings business leaders, middle-class voters, and Democrats who are not happy with their policy, especially their party, especially in the South, fundamental Christians. They're all going to come together with these new cultural issues, and they're going to form this, what we call the new right. Their goals are to shrink federal government, strengthen national defense, reduce regulations, and go back to, again, what they're calling traditional family values, which does not mean equal rights for everybody. One of the key things is what they call the Southern strategy, and this is where Republican leaders are going to appeal to the white Southern Democrats, and they're going to try and attempt to get them to move over to their side. So you see Southern voters shifting from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party. Again, they're going with the idea of calling it the new right, grassroots activism. They're going to organize around single issues such as abortion, school prayer, and the death penalty. They want, abortion rights ended. They want everybody to pray in school. So these groups are going to use direct mail, church networks, local organizing to build a really powerful political base. And they want to transform the Republican Party. I'm not sure if you heard a big old snore out of a little chunky monkey black lab. Okay, space program. Remember, we're still involved with space. Okay, what we have going on for NASA, major milestones and not happy times. You have the Space Shuttle program. It's the first launch in 1981. It's going to be a reusable spacecraft that it changes the way that the United States approaches the idea of putting humans into space flight. You have a breakthrough in 83. You have Sally Ride. She's going to be the first American woman in space. She's going to fly aboard the Challenger. Her achievements are going to, because remember, you have the ERA going on right now, equal rights, and being a woman put in space. This is going to be a symbol for women to get into science and kind of show that women can also do jobs that men are doing. All right, 1986. This is a sad day. This is when the Space Shuttle Challenger is going to explode 73 seconds after liftoff. It kills all 7 crew members, and then it's going to halt space shuttle flights for close to 3 years as they redo safety systems and redesign. But despite the tragedy, the 1980s still, you see a push for space technology and moving forward in this area. You're going to have some work on the International Space Station, which is a long-term laboratory in space with different global partnership, not just us. Okay, so that's NASA and the space race. Social activism, we have going back to what's happening to our planet. You have Earth Day, which is going to become a holiday, and you have Silent Spring, which is a novel written about what's happening with the global climate. Life in the 80s, you have personal computers, which are not flat and small like they are now. You have, we talked about before, cable television, home video game systems. The movie was The Wedding Singer. One of the most popular movies around the teenagers was Breakfast Club. These guys are all different, teenagers from different cliques, and they come together for for detention one Saturday morning, and they get into all types of mischief. But they're like a defining moment of the 80s, the Breakfast Club. I guarantee you guys have probably heard the songs that go along with the movies. Okay, just so you know, this is an anti-drug campaign that Nancy Reagan starts, really teaching people about drugs and what drugs does, and they go through the schools. You have MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. You have, we raise the drinking age to 21. It used to be 18, so it was 18 when I was in high school. They raised it to 21. You have AIDS, which is the epidemic, which is really huge culture-wise, because it is going to be attached to just the gay community, and the gay community is going to take a lot of abuse for that. You have people will be scared to be in the same swimming pool as a gay person. Nobody understands how it's spread, and you're going to have really a lot of propaganda around it that is directed negatively towards the gay communities. What else do we have here? Yep, that's about it for that one. Oh, you have MTV. This is big, 1981. On TV, they're going to play a music video. So teenagers are going to rush home to school to watch the latest video. So MTV becomes a major thing. I don't even know if we have MTV anymore. Oh, don't you like the hair? So all that hairspray probably is what really affected the ozone layers. We had very big hair. I would love to be able to have that type of volume in my hair right now. Flashdance was a big movie, and you see the off-the-shoulder sweat shirt. Well, this is a dress, which is kind of funny because when I'm recording this, it's March 2025, and you gals are starting to wear this little off-the-shoulder. Well, that's from the 80s, my friends. You need to add your leg warmers to it and high heels, and then you will have the 80s look down. All right, let's finish up with Reagan, and let's get to Bush. So Reagan's going to leave office in 1989, and George H.W. Bush. You're going to have Papa, and you're going to have the son. This is Papa right now. He's going to be in office from 89 to 93. So the big thing that happens with him is Tiananmen Square protest in 1989. So this is in Asia, China. And what happens is you have students who are going to protest against an authoritarian, I can't even speak anymore. God knows what the next video is going to sound like. So you have authoritarian rule, and the famous picture, I'm sorry I didn't put it up here, is one student standing up against a tank. So they're going to come in and try and shut down this student protest, and what's going to happen is you see all these students, and then you see one student, he's standing in front of a tank. That's what we're seeing on TV. And then all the satellite goes dark. You see nothing. And then when it comes back on, all the students are gone. And it's a real hush-hush thing as to what happened to the students. Okay, what do we have with Reagan? Let's see, are we going to talk about Bush, 89, 93? Yeah, we'll wait and talk about Bush next. Talk about the Persian Gulf and what happens with the Persian Gulf. Operation Desert Storm is actually going to be in the 90s. So we will talk about that next lecture. All right, we are done.